Hey, what's happening, guys? What's cracking YouTube? What's going on? Thank you. You have tuned into Rules for Rebels. In today's video, we're going to be talking about ad blindness or banner blindness. I found this study from the Nielsen Group, and oddly enough, my father actually used to work for Nielsen. And it talks about ad blindness. Now, this is going to be a really long video. This is probably going to be a 30 to 40 minute long video. But it's fascinating. So I'm going to give you guys kind of the short synopsis of this. Within like the first 2 to 3 minutes of this video for anybody who maybe gets tired of this being a long video or this is too analytical for them. But this is incredibly important to know. If you're an advertiser, this is going to save you a ton of money in advertising, and it's going to make you a much more effective advertiser. And if you're a publisher, if you have your own blog or something like that, understanding ad blindness is going to help you understand where to put your ads to essentially trick people. I hate to say trick people, but we'll show you in a second here. There's certain parts of a page that people just know to ignore, right? And I would say ad blindness is more common among younger people and more tech-savvy people because we spend more time on the internet and we kind of see through ads and things like that. So let me just pull up a couple things. I did a Google search on Chicago pet sitters. Now, any of you guys who are, in e-commerce, in digital marketing, in advertising, or who spend a lot of time on the internet, you probably know to ignore this section of a Google search page right here, right? Because these are sponsored ads. If you're wanting to look for organic results, you look down below here. If we go over to a Yahoo page right here, we know to ignore this huge area of the screen here because this is just a banner ad, right? So whereas someone who's internet savvy or who is kind of ad blind, they might look to the header of a page to see kind of the navigation of a page, and then they'll probably look to the center area of this page. Most people are going to avoid the left sidebar and right sidebar because we're just going to see more ads like this here. And, Yahoo's smart. They try to mix in some sports scores and stuff to get us interested in this part of the page, but really they're just trying to service ads here. And then a lot of times in between sections of content, you'll see more ads. Like this is all sponsored content right here. So again, if you're an advertiser, you're going to want to put your ads in places where people who are ad blind aren't necessarily going to expect them. So within content, in between content. And if you're a publisher, you're going to want to do the same thing, right? Because you're wanting people to click the ads, to visit your sponsors. So this is incredibly important stuff. And again, this could save you a lot of money in advertising and make your advertising a lot more effective. And as a publisher, whether you're using AdSense or affiliate programs or CPA offers, this will make you much better in that area as well. I'll share one brief quick story with you before we get into this. So a while back, I was using an AdWords management firm for the past maybe 2 years to manage my AdWords account. And one interesting thing, they didn't really point specifically to the word ad blindness, but essentially that's what they were describing to me. And kind of we'd have a monthly call where we'd go over results and talk strategy and things like that. And one thing they said, normally there's 3 sponsored ads, and my ad guys would say, look, we don't want to show up number 1 or number 2. They said most web searchers tend to ignore the number 1 and 2 number 1 and number 2 results, and also you're paying more for them. So a lot of people, when they start running ads on AdSense, they say, I want to be at the top. I want to be ahead of all my competitors. But the reality here is this top spot, not only is it incredibly expensive, but most people who click it, it's either an accident or just a knee-jerk reaction. You actually want to be in slot 2 or slot 3. It's going to be considerably cheaper, and also people sometimes mistake like the number 2 and number 3 spots as being organic results. And he didn't actually call out the word ad blindness, but that's essentially why they were utilizing that strategy. So this Nielsen Norman Group study, it was titled Banner Blindness Revisited, Users Dodge Ads on Mobile and Desktop. And there's actually some different softwares and things out there which can actually track where people's cursors are going on your web page. Also in here, I think they actually do studies that like follow your retina and see what people are looking at. So, essentially I've kind of wrapped up everything for you in that little summary there. But there is a lot of great info in here. There's a lot of great videos showing where people's eyes go. We can see examples of web pages and see where people's eyes go. So for any of you guys who want to learn more about this and delve a little bit deeper, hang with me and we'll get into this. So banner blindness is a long-known web user behavior. It describes people's tendency to ignore page elements they perceive correctly or incorrectly to be ads. And while the web page patterns and types of advertisements have evolved, banner blindness is still prevalent, our recent research shows. Banner blindness is an instance of selective attention. People direct their attention only to a subset of stimuli in the environment. usually those related to their goals. This behavior is a consequence of our limited attention capacities. If we were to attend the enormous inflow of sounds and patterns that surround us, we would be overwhelmed and behave inefficiently. On the web, UI elements and different pieces of content all fight for the user's attention. To complete their tasks efficiently, people have learned to pay attention to elements that are typically helpful, e.g. navigation bars, search boxes, and headlines, and ignore those which are usually void of information. Ads are perhaps the most prominent member of the last category, hence banner blindness. Legitimate content elements have a certain ad-like characteristic are ignored too. Here are the traits that signal an ad. Ad-specific placement, like the top of a page or the right rail. Ad-like visual treatment, such as animation. Proximity to actual ads or promotions. So number one, location. Ignoring ads is a learned behavior. Like many other user behaviors on the web, classic examples include seeking the company logo in the upper left-hand corner of the page, or looking for the global navigation across the top of the page. So here we see kind of the global navigation right here and the logo up there. In our latest eye tracking study, we observed that some participants have learned to skip past the ads presented at the top of the Google search results, even though the visual design is far from the traditional banner. And here we can kind of see where do most people's eyes go. A lot of people's eyes are going to Google Images. And then I don't know the actual name for this, but this is not a sponsored ad. Right here we have a sponsored ad. We can see everybody ignores this. This section, normally Google picks out like one specific web page that's kind of an authority on a certain topic and gives you much more of a longer preview and oftentimes an image. And if you can get here on Google, you're going to get tons of traffic. A lot of people look here to frequently asked questions, and you can normally, let's see if we go back over here. Okay, they don't have it here. Let's see if we search a topic like best hotels in Chicago. Yeah, that's too promotional. Anyhow, I was trying to pull one up, but normally you can click this arrow and get a little bit more answers to certain topics. And then like the top 3 organic results are where most people's eyes goes. And it says, this gaze plot shows that on a Google search engine results page SERP, the user did not look at all at the first result of the advertisement. Each red dot represents an eye fixation from a single user. The lines connecting them represent fast eye movements or saccades, during which a user can't see anything. So, here's like a couple hundred users, and here's kind of where each person's eyes went. Because the desktop ads typically appear at the top of the page or the right rail, web users sometimes ignore the content placed there. In our most recent eye tracking study, 26 test participants visited the same web page as they worked on a task to find the best method for removing a label from the jar. The page included a small amount of text, some images, and advertisements in both the top banner and the right trail. Users read the text on the page, but they looked very little at all, if at all, at the ads. So here's kind of where people's eyes went here. They completely ignored the ad. And I think another thing we can kind of take away from this, let's say you have a blog and you were thinking about putting your sign-up box up at the top right here, which I actually have my email list sign-up box there. It's a terrible place because even though it's not an ad, people expect it to be an ad and people ignore that area of the page. It's kind of funny. Most people traditionally say the best performing ad spots are 300 by 250 ads, kind of right here or above the fold. And what's kind of interesting is yeah, for people who aren't savvy, that may be true, but most people are going to completely ignore those areas of the page. So we might want to, as like say AdSense users, or even anybody running any type of affiliate banner ads, stop placing ads there. Let's see. The heat map aggregates the fixations of 26 people who used this page on apartmenttherapy.com. The text was read a lot, but the ads in the top banner and right rail got little attention. The color red represents areas that got the most fixations. Yellow stands for a moderate number of fixations, and blue for the fewest fixations. Areas with no overlay coloring received no fixations. So, I mean, look at people's eyes only went right down the center of the page. So as an advertiser or as a publisher, I might want to put my ads down the center of the page between content as opposed to using sidebars. Let's see, what do we got here? So here we're looking at a kitchen.com. Here's where people's eyes went. Main images, social media sharing buttons, kind of the main text of the article. People completely ignored the author bio and social share buttons and completely ignored ads down the right sidebar. And it goes on to say this gaze plot was from thekitchen.com. The participants didn't look at ads in the top banner or right rail as he researched organizing his kitchen. Next, number 2, visual treatment. An ad doesn't have to appear at the top of the page or in the right rail to be ignored. Today's ads can appear anywhere within a web page, and users are aware of this fact. Thus, they are careful not to waste time on ads, even when the ads appear within content areas. And this is kind of interesting, right? Because we just got done talking about the location of where people expect ads, but obviously people know that advertisers and publishers have smartened up and tried to kind of trick them and put ads in the middle of content. So I think people are also starting to realize kind of what an ad looks like. So making your ads not look like ads, I'm assuming, this is my first time reading over this, but making your ads not appear like ads seems to be probably a smart thing to do. An ad doesn't appear at the top of today's ad's going to be okay. On desktop, inline ads are relatively easy to ignore because they are very different from the surrounding page elements. For example, in our recent study, 26 participants who were trying to learn about the Mikhail Berzhanov dance training ignored the promotion that appeared within the text. The main reason they could do this, the promotion looked different from the text and the photography on the site. Specifically, the ad stood out because of several qualities. Small rectangular shape in the middle of the text. Okay, so see, like here we have text all across, and here it's very clear that's an ad. It's not consistent. Fancy formatting, right? Looks different. Colored blue against a white background. Text embedded into an image. So these are all things that kind of scream ad to us. And you can see the person looked at the navigation menu, looked at the content, and almost completely ignored the ad. Most users totally ignored the blue rectangular promotion that appears after the first text block on the page backnyc.org. Number 3, proximity to ads. Ads poison adjacent items. So, anything near an ad people tend to ignore as well. So content placed in the same part of the screen as an advertisement is often considered to be an ad and is also ignored. So if you are going to run ads on a website, or if you're going to advertise on a website that has ads, try to keep important content that you want the reader to take notice of. Try to keep it as far away from ads as possible. The Gestalt law of proximity. Items that are close to each other are assumed to be part of a group and thus related in function. As people inspect various items within the region of the screen, they form a mental model of the content available there based on the information sent of the items they attend to. Thus, if one of the items seems completely irrelevant, they will often assume that the entire section is not related to their goal and will stop scanning the rest of the items. A study participant who is learning how to remove a jar label looked at the right rail just once, presumably deciding that it contained only ads. The right rail did indeed contain sponsored stories, but also housed fun, helpful videos demonstrating how to do various craft projects such as crocheting or rug making a magnetic frame. The user was put off by the ad position in the same page section and examined no other content on the right rail. So essentially what they're saying here, right here are some fun craft projects, but it was completely ignored because of the IKEA ad above it. So again, they looked for the header, they looked at the social sharing buttons, and I guess what might have been perceived as navigation. They looked at the written content, but completely ignored the ads after one initial glance. When the user saw sponsored stories in the right rail of apartmenttherapy.com, she assumed everything in the section was an advertisement and didn't look again. Next, hot potato. As seen in the example above, ads can cause users to look away from an area and not return to it again. Such an experience may not only their local behavior on that specific page, but can also influence their general web behavior. They may not look at the same area on other pages, even on other sites. This is an instance of the hot potato phenomenon, which Jacob Nielsen and I defined in our book, Eye Tracking Web Usability. The hot potato metaphor comes from a game that I used to play in elementary school. In this game, the kids sat in a circle and tossed a ball to one another. When the teacher played music, the teacher would unexpectedly stop the music, at which point whatever kid was holding the ball was out of the game. So whoever caught the ball wanted to get rid of it as quickly as possible and never to have to touch it again. Definition. On the web, hot potato scanning patterns occur when users gaze at an item in which they are not interested, then look away and avoid fixating on that page. And sometimes on pages on other websites that are even completely different websites. The hot potato behavior is a defense mechanism to avoid wasting time and fixations on irrelevant elements. It's also an example of availability bias based on one or few examples. Web users assume that the same type of content will always appear in the same location on other pages, but this assumption is not always right. For example, though in earlier days of the web the right rail was reserved for ads, its function changed later to include related links. Today the right rail can be used for pretty much anything. When content resembles ads and appears in the right rail, users tend to ignore it. The following example, the user was looking for hiking in the Andes. The information appeared throughout the site, including within the right rail. She fixated on the right rail, and since the items there appeared to be ads, she never looked at the right rail again. So here, we do have one ad here, but we have related travel news, and we have some related articles or programs. But you can see the user gave one glance over here. This image kind of looks like an ad, even though it's not an ad, and they never went back there. For the rest of the time, the users looked at the header, the content down the center of the page, and the left sidebar doesn't appear to be ads at all. So they didn't mind kind of looking to the left for categories and navigation and some other popular content. The gaze plot shows that users looked once at the right of cascadatravel.en, then never looked at the right rail again. And here's kind of a close-up of that related programs that we saw. Okay, so I guess this isn't even an ad. It just looks like an ad, but it turned people off. A zoom-in image of the right rail shows that it contains not only promotions, but also content elements related to what the user was researching. Let's focus for a moment on just the content area of the page. The area that does not include the hero, there are 148 fixations on the page, out of which 132 are in the content area. Out of those 132 fixations, only one is within the right rail. That's 0.8% of the user's attention within 25% of the content area. The immense mismatch between these two percentages shows the poisoned effect of the hot potato phenomenon. The number of fixations in the right rail was 33 times smaller than its size might have warranted. Inline ads on mobile. Like desktop users, mobile users try to avoid advertisements, though on mobile there are some standard locations for ad placement, e.g. top of an article, bottom of the screen. Many web pages embed ads within content. Inline ads on mobile are hard to avoid for multiple reasons. There's less information available at the time, so it's harder to identify page elements that look different from the main content because so little of the page content is presently available. So what they're saying there is, on mobile, you don't have nearly as big of a screen. So when we're on desktop, right, we can take in all the elements of this page here. When we're on mobile, we might only be seeing a small little box here. So it's harder to kind of get the context. And a mobile inline ad is so large in proportion to the size of the screen that users cannot avert their eyes from it as they simply swipe down. So the ad inherently catches some gauges, even though people know it's an ad. So what they're saying here, and I don't feel like editing in my mobile phone, but you guys know this, like, phone screens are so much smaller than a computer screen that when you're scrolling through an article and there's like a 300 by 250 banner ad, it's going to take up almost all of your phone screen. So you can scroll through it, but it's probably going to grab your attention just because it's going to take up your entire screen. Let's take a look at this. In this gaze replay, a study participant uses medicinet.com to search for signs of contagion when you have a cold. He swipes quickly past the Nordstrom ads. His eyes roll past them, but he doesn't pay attention to them. In most browsers, hover over the video to display the controls if they're not already visible. So this guy's reading content. He sees an ad, but he recognizes an ad and goes right past it. Same thing, another ad, right past it. Let's see. This gaze replay shows a mobile user searching for an external hard drive on PCMag.com. She had been reading text and scanning images of hard drives when an ad for a Samsung Galaxy appeared. She fixated on it a few times. The ad was hard to avoid and unexpected. In most browsers, however, okay, same thing there. Let's take a look at this one. Faux ads. Easy to mistake visual elements for ads on mobile. Because the phone screen is so small, visual treatment tends to play an important part in whether people assume an inline element to be an ad. Anything that stands out from immediately surrounding content is likely to be considered an ad, although its presentation may be consistent with other elements on the page that are not visible at the time. Thus, people can sometimes mistakenly assume that big images, graphics, and other elements that stand out are ads. This happens on desktop also, but we notice it on mobile for the first time in our recent study. For example, an experienced mobile user might see the top of an ad and then quickly scroll past it before examining it, assuming it's an ad. So let's see, a user who was looking for a portable generator on generic.com ignored the section that resembled an ad because it looked very different from the white page background and images on the rest of the screen. The user scrolled past the section without inspecting it, even though it contained installation information, a topic he likely would have been interested in. In most browsers, okay, same thing there. Let's take a look here. Okay, so that was the part we just saw there. Let's go back. You're going to see him scroll down. Oh, crap. Let's see. Did we get it? Right here, I believe this is going to be the installation information, but you see he didn't even look at it and scrolled right past it. So, I guess kind of the mistake in whoever designed this web page was making important content look as if it was an ad because it wound up being completely ignored. How to prevent ads from poisoning your content. We first documented banner blindness among web users in 1997 through traditional usability testing. Then we replicated this finding more in 2007 when we conducted a major eye tracking study. We just completed a new major eye tracking study and found that banner blindness is still a common behavior as discussed in this article. Banner blindness has now been documented across 3 decades. It's a strong and robust phenomenon, and like advertisements themselves, it's not likely to go away anytime soon. Ads are a survival mechanism on the web. Many businesses won't last without ad revenue or advertising themselves, and ads can sometimes benefit users. So getting rid of them is not my recommendation at all, but designers should be smart about how they present site content. In particular, follow these guidelines. Do not make content look like ads. Choose color types, background, and overall content style carefully. You may think that making it look different from the rest of the site will increase its salience, but oftentimes it has the opposite effect. Number 2, run usability tests to make sure that users actually see important content placed on the top banner or right rail. And number 3, do not mix content and ads in the same visual section. To me, I'm not a super analytical person, and this wasn't overly analytical. They really broke this down in a user-friendly way. And I would say just, again, whether you are a publisher or whether you're an advertiser, keep this in mind. It's going to help you spend your ad budgets more efficiently and reach people better. And as a publisher, it's going to get people paying attention to your advertisers' ads, which likely is what makes you money on your site. So I thought this was fascinating. Wanted to share it with you guys. If you guys like this article, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button below. And if any of you guys want to take a look over this article for yourself, I will link to it in the description box below. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.